Hey you guys, welcome to another video from Hormones Balance. Today I want to show you how to make honey paste. You might be thinking I'm completely obsessed with honey, and that is absolutely true. I've somehow gained a lot of appreciation for honey in the past few months. And one of it is that it's a really wonderful vehicle to bring in herbs that are perhaps kind of difficult to consume on their own, or maybe you don't know what to do with them. You can put them into honey, make that into a honey paste, and have it actually as a little treat. So, and if you haven't been following me for a while, there's a whole bunch of videos that I did just in the past few weeks. One of it which was very popular, was the winter syrup, which I still think it's worthwhile for you to take a look at that, because it's a really great way of preventing and managing flus and colds. I infused apple cider vinegar with things like oranges and cinnamon and elderberry and garlic and onion and a whole bunch of other things, all antimicrobials, really powerful. And then infusing that for 2 weeks, and we then combine that with honey. That was one of the most popular recipes. So if you haven't seen it, go back and take a look at that. It was on Facebook Live, but it's also on my YouTube channel. So today I want to show you how to make a honey paste, and I'm going to give you a template for it so that you can pretty much use any herbs that you like. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, but I really want to focus on one really simple recipe, and that is going to be using dong quai, which is one of my absolute favorite herbs. That's very much used in traditional Chinese medicine. We're going to be using turmeric, which many of you know, and we're going to be using pepper. So one of the beauties of dong quai is the fact that it's historically been used as a women's tonic, uterine tonic, but it can also be a very powerful tool to help you deal with hot flashes and night sweats. And so many of you are emailing us almost daily asking, what do I do when I have hot flashes? So by the way, stay tuned, because we do have an article coming out about hot flashes just in probably about 3 weeks time. But in the meantime, because there is a lot of things you could be doing or should be doing when you have hot flashes. But this recipe can really take the edge off, if not maybe completely help you too. So if, shall we zoom in on the hands? I've got an assistant, Katie, who's my neighbor, helping me with doing all the video stuff today. So it makes it easy. I can just focus on talking and showing. So what as you can maybe see, perhaps let me just also put in my hand, I'm using not ground dong quai, but I'm using, we good? Yeah. I'm using dong quai that is in the form of chips. So this is a root. We are using the root of the plant. And this root is not in a powder form yet. Do you guys want to guess why I don't use powder form? Why is it always in a chip form? I have talked a lot about it. If you follow me for a while, you know this. And I do the same thing with turmeric. I typically never buy turmeric powder. I always powder it myself. And we're going to be using pepper. So the reason why we're using, let me just tell you first about dong quai. The amazing thing about dong quai is that it is a uterine tonic. A tonic means that it tonifies the muscle in the uterus. What's also beautiful about it is that even though it's an emmenagogue, which means that it promotes blood flow in women, you shouldn't be taking it if you're having very heavy periods. But if for women who don't have periods, or women who have spotty periods, this actually tonifies the uterus and help you regulate your period, which is a really wonderful thing. If you're going through perimenopause, it might bring on the period back, but it just shows you that maybe you're not ready to enter menopause yet. And if you're already in menopause, you will not get your period back. I promise you that. So instead, what it will help is help you with hot flashes. Part of it is most likely because contains phytoestrogens. So it is a natural way of bringing the estrogen levels up higher by using this herb. So what we're gonna do, the first step is, well, let me not forget, actually, the star of the show today is our honey. Now, the reason why I'm keeping it here in this Instant Pot, right, is because there's hot water in there, and I've been having it in there for about 2 hours to bring it to a point of being really liquid. So if we do a little zoom in, you will maybe see, I don't want to swirl too much because then it's super liquid right now. And we want to liquidate it that way. I don't know if this is the right word, but make it really soft and reduce the viscosity of of the honey so that we can easily blend in the herbs into it. What we're going to be next doing is, before we blend everything together, actually let me put that right back in here to keep it warm. And the first thing we're going to do is powders. So the reason, has anybody, Jean, can you post and let us know if anybody has guessed why we're using powder and, sorry, full herbs and not powder first? Obviously, we don't want to be putting this into our honey paste. We're going to grind it up first. And so in case you don't know, when you freshly grind your spices and you have that incredible fragrance that comes out, the minute you take the lid off, you're like, whoa, that is amazing. Whether it's rosemary, whether it's cinnamon, whether it's cloves, right? And that fragrance, actually, those are essential oils, volatile oils that have incredible medicinal properties, and shows you how fresh and bioavailable that herb is. If you have a powdered herb in your cabinet, then you put your nose in and going like, what is that? That's the kind of herb you want to throw away because it's pretty much useless. It's fully oxidized. It doesn't have any medicinal properties. So I'm going to grind up a bigger amount. The star of the show is going to be Dong Quai. So in here, by the way, our recipe developer got sick, so I don't have the recipe written out for you yet, but we will have it probably in a week's time. So I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of the chips of Dong Quai. And then the next ingredient many of you are familiar with is turmeric, right? And the curcumin in there is the active compound that has incredible anti-inflammatory properties. The reason why I love to combine it in this concoction here is because when you have a hot flash, it's a sign of the inflammation that's taking place in the body, and turmeric is going to help you to reduce that. I'm going to be using only 1 tablespoon. Why? Because I want the star of the show to be Dong Quai and not turmeric. Plus, it's got a pretty strong taste, if you will. Not everybody's favorite. We can also use black peppercorns, just a little bit, tiny bit. The reason why is because black pepper has got a compound called piperine, and piperine will then activate the digestive juices, and then that way turmeric is much more absorbable in the honey. So very simply, we're just gonna give it a good swirl and grind it up. Yes, you do want to have it finely powdered, not too many. Yeah, I'll just give it a little bit more time. Oh. Now, this is what happens. You know what I mean? Like, this is really good stuff. When you open this up and you go, you can see the color, right? Beautiful yellow, okay? And it's finely powdered, so you're not gonna have any, like, pieces and fiber in your mouth. Now, the proportion is, generally speaking, this is, by the way, this is a recipe that really is a like a village herbalist method, if you will. It doesn't make any worse, but it's not particularly science to it, as in you can't really screw it up per se. Typically the method is you use 1 tablespoon of freshly ground herbs with about 1 fluid ounce of honey, okay? Now here's a little disclaimer though. The honey that I purchased, this particular one, is raw, local. There's no such as organic honey. If you watched my video with the Honey Beekeepers founder, there's no such thing as organic honey because you can control where the honeys are going. But what we can do is we definitely can support a lot of local honey, and that's really good. It's full of enzymes that actually helps your own immune system. So the honey was already very liquid, the one that I bought, and for that reason, I didn't really have to keep it in the hot water for too long. If you're starting off with a very, buttered, they call it buttered honey, right? So it's very solid. You definitely want to soften it, but make sure that you don't put too many powders in, because then it hardens so much. When it hardens, it's going to be so hard, you're going to be literally just going to be like that to pull something out, right? So I'm going to do about 2 ounces of my honey here. Let's see how graceful I do that. That would probably be about 2 ounces. Let me try to keep my kitchen neat for once. All right. You just hate it when it like kind of drips on the side. Okay, and so we have about 2 ounces here. And can we see well, Katie? Yeah, all good? Okay. And then what we're gonna do is, now really important little tidbit is you don't wanna dump your powder right away. You wanna be sprinkling the powder in, even though it's just 1 tablespoon. And so you wanna use 2 hands. One is to, probably switch hands because I'm right-handed, is to, why? Because lumps form really quickly. And what we want to do is, you will see the consistency. I think the most important thing is to achieve a consistency. And it could be, sorry, my left hand is not that skilled. It could be that we need a little bit less powder. All right, so that was 1 tablespoon. As you can see, it's still very liquid, right? Of course, it's gonna harden, but it still gives us a bit of more room. It might be that I might end up using 2.5 or 3 even tablespoons of that powder, just because I started off with a very liquid honey. All right. You will know when it's enough, and I'll show you what's the consistency to look for. Again, remember, if you're starting off with a hard honey, you wanna put less powder in. And frankly, like, even if you put too much powder in, it's okay. You can just soften it back, put it in a hot vessel like this, and then you will just have to add a bit more honey, and that way you dissolve it. The other way of diluting it is that you can add, okay, we are getting there. So can you see how now you have this rich texture here that is not as liquid as it was before, right? I'm just gonna finish off my 1 tablespoon here and see how that feels. You know, one of the things you might be wondering, like, my God, you made all these things with honey, Magdalena. What's been happening with all of those things? I actually gave a lot of them away. My neighbor is sick all the time, so I gave her that winter syrup, pretty much half of it. The other one I gave it to my friend. So this is pretty much the consistency that you want. You know, let's just experiment. Let me just add another 1/2 tablespoon and just see what happens then. Okay. Are we zooming in? Okay. Yeah, it still looks good. Now, how do you eat this is really simple. It's basically, it's so delicious, just the same way. Okay, I might want to stop at this point. And you would know this when it becomes just really kind of hard to mix, you know, when the blending is kind of becoming hard work. That's your cue. That's your visual cue or experiential cue that we are pretty much done. So, little vessel, and again, this could be used as a lovely present for somebody who's struggling with hot flashes. There we go. Of course, you can make more. I'm just playing around here just with 2 ounces just to show you. One thing is, you know, I recommend to start off with smaller batches and see whether you like it. One very big mistake I've made is I didn't sample it. So, in case you wonder about dong quai, it's very good. Dong quai has got this very earthy, because it's a root, so it's got this very earthy flavor to it, but it's also a sweet flavor, right? So it's like the sweetness with the honey is actually really awesome. The reason why I had cinnamon out is because if you struggle with blood sugar balance problems and you like sugar, like, you know, at the end of the day, honey is sugar. And one way to mitigate that so you don't get a sugar spike so quickly is to add a bit of cinnamon. And what you do then is grind it up together with the other herbs just the way I just did it. So that is pretty much it. That's your honey paste right here. If you want to have it full, just use double the honey. you know, and anybody who's dealing with hot flashes, is just a wonderful little gift that you can give them. I didn't finish my thought on how to use this. You can put that on top of your, if you're doing cereal, you can put that in a cup of tea. One of my favorites would be to use a red clover tea with some red raspberry leaf, and then using this as a tea, all of those herbs. So red clover, red raspberry leaf, dong quai are like those classical women supportive herbs. One of the beauty of these kind of herbs is that if you are having irregular periods, it's going to help you. But if you're also in menopause and you have no more periods and you're suffering from things like hot flashes, it will help you normalize. I like to use as a women's adaptogen. I'm not supposed to use that term because adaptogens are reserved for certain types of herbs, which is a different category altogether. But in my mind, it's like that adaptogen, that herb kind of adapts depending on what you need. You got too much of a period, you don't have your period, but you should be having a period. It will help you there. If you, like I said, you got hot flashes, night sweat, you're dealing with some menopausal stuff, it will support you there as well. So really a wonderful way of using herbs. So let me go over to see whether we have any questions coming in today. Jean, do you want to just post there and let me know what's coming up? How many people do we have live, Katie? It shows on that a little person 81. Icon. 81 people are watching online. Okay, so let's see if there's anything. Let me know what questions do you have. The recipe that we're going to develop is going to be showing you how to use different powders, different herbs in a powder form for different other conditions. The first time I had made honey paste, it was with turmeric and pepper, and it was also with ginger. And the whole idea of using that, it was like a digestive fire, if you will. And that is a really great way of stimulating your digestion. So it's like a great way of starting off before a meal. You can have it after a meal too. There's various different ways, different herbs that we can use, and we'll create a template for you in a recipe so you can pick and choose the herbs that you need in order to support your health. I hope today's video was helpful, and I'll see you guys next Friday.